So the classification of hepatitis, it can be either viral hepatitis or non-viral hepatitis. The viral hepatitis are more commonly studied, which includes hepatitis A, B, C, D, E. Besides these viruses, the less commoner ones, which are not purely hepatotropic viruses, are the cytomegalovirus, Epstein-Barr virus, herpes simplex, and the yellow fever. And amongst the non-viral hepatitis, it can be either toxic and drug-induced hepatitis, as most of the drugs are metabolized in the liver. It can be autoimmune hepatitis, alcoholic hepatitis, or metabolic hepatitis. So today we will study about the hepatotropic viruses, autoimmune hepatitis, and some toxic and drug-induced hepatitis. So first of all, coming to the hepatitis A virus. It was discovered in around 1973. It's an RNA virus. It belongs to the family of Picornaviridae, and it was previously known as enterovirus 72. Now, the genome is a single-stranded positive sense RNA virus, and this VPG is the viral protein. 4 viral proteins are there, that is VP1, VP2, VP3, and VP4. So the rest all are theoretical. The envelope is absent. Now, coming to the geographic distribution, you can see that India has got a high prevalence of hepatitis A virus. Now, what is the pathogenesis? The hepatitis A virus is enterically transmitted, that is through food and waterborne infection. So once the ingestion of the contaminated food or water is there, it multiplies inside the intestinal epithelium. Then from the intestinal epithelium through the portal circulation, it enters the bloodstream and migrates to the liver parenchymal cells. Now in the liver parenchymal cell, it will bind to the receptor, then it will be endocytosed, and then the viral protein will be released into the cytoplasm. It will undergo replication, translation, it will release the protein, and ultimately the viral proteins will be released into the bile ducts. And because of from the bile ducts, it will go into the intestine and it will be shed in the feces. So coming to the serological pattern, now hepatitis A virus is a simple virus. So after an incubation period of around 2 to 6 weeks, the fecal hepatitis A virus can be detected through PCR. And in the serology, what we can detect is, first of all, the IgM antibody. Now, you must be knowing or just know the fact that when there is antigen, there is no antibody. The antibody will come after some days of the antigen, because the antigen will stimulate the body to create the antibody. And the first antibody which comes in any viral infection is of IgM type, and later the IgG type. So when we look into the serology, the first antibody to appear is the IgM antibody, now with the onset of symptoms, and this will persist for about 3 to 6 months. And after a few more days or few more weeks, IgG type of anti-hepatitis A virus will appear during recovery from acute infection, and this will persist for years, and this will confer lifelong immunity in case of hepatitis A virus. Now, hepatitis A virus does not have any chronic phase, nor does it, because it doesn't have any chronic phase, there are less chances of cirrhosis, or rather no chances of cirrhosis or development of hepatocellular carcinoma. Now coming to the hepatitis B virus, which is very important and also a bit complicated. Now, hepatitis B virus is the only DNA virus in the hepatotropic group. Rest all are RNA viruses. Now, what are the various proteins present in the hepatitis B virus? It belongs to the Hepadnaviridae family. It has a envelope protein, and there are 3 core proteins. Now, the envelope protein consists of the S gene. In the S gene, when the translation is only in the S gene, it is called the major envelope protein, HBsAg, which is the infective protein. And if the translation starts from the pre-S2 region, it is the middle protein. And if the translation starts from the pre-S1 region, it is the large protein. Now, inside the core, we have the largest gene, which is the P gene. Now, the P gene codes for the DNA polymerase. And with the help of DNA polymerase only, this virus integrates into the nucleus of the hepatocyte, and there is replication of the hepatitis B virus in the hepatocyte. So this DNA polymerase, this contains both DNA-dependent DNA polymerase and RNA-dependent reverse transcriptase activities. Now this DNA genome that is not double-stranded. This is an incomplete double-stranded gene, and for its replication through reverse transcriptase, it has to be converted into RNA, and then only it will be converted again to hepatitis B virus containing DNA. Now, the another important protein which is present in the core region or the gene is the C gene. Now, the C gene codes for two proteins. One is the hepatitis HBe antigen, and another is the hepatitis C antigen. Now, hepatitis E antigen is formed when the initiation starts from the pre-C region. Now, the C gene contains the pre-C zone and the C zone. So, when the translation starts from the pre-C region, it is called the protein which is secreted is the HBe antigen, and HBe antigen can be secreted into the blood, and so there can be an antibody reaction also against it, that is anti-HBe. Now the other protein which is being secreted by the C gene is the HB core antigen, that is HBC antigen. Now, the HBC antigen cannot be secreted into the blood. However, anti-HBC can be produced against this core antigen. But remember this fact that when we study the serology, the HBC antigen cannot be detected in the blood. Now, the another gene which is present is HBx gene. Now, HBx gene that has a role in calcium release, which activates the signal transduction pathways, and this leads to the stimulation of the reverse transcription and HBV DNA replication. However, we do not study the HBx antigen routinely in our serology. Now, this is an electron micrographic photograph from fecal hepatitis A virus, showing this only the spherical particles, whereas the hepatitis B virus shows this tubular as well as the spherical particles. Now, coming to the mode of transmission. Mode of transmission in case of hepatitis B can be horizontal transmission or vertical transmission. Horizontal transmission is through the parental route, either through drug abuse or unscreened transfusion of unscreened blood products, tattoos and acupuncture needles, or through sexual transmission. Now, vertical transmission is from the mother to the child, from a hepatitis B surface antigen positive mother. The infective antigen is the hepatitis surface antigen. Now, the life cycle, as like any of the viruses, while the RNA virus does not incorporate into the DNA, the hepatitis B, being a DNA virus, will incorporate into the DNA. It will reach the reach the surface of the hepatocytes, then it will be endocytosed, then it will be integrated into the host DNA, then there will be transcription, translation, and ultimately release back into the circulation. Now, in hepatitis B, there are certain genotypes. Now, how does this genotype form? Now, this envelope HBs antigen that has several subdeterminants. However, the A portion is common in all the genotype. Rest all specific antigens can be this D or Y, W or R. So, these combinations help in the formation of at least 10 genotypes, that is A to J. And in this also, there will be various subtypes. At least 8 subtypes are defined, which will be a combination of this specific antigens. However, the A antigen is common to all the genotypes, or rather all the subtypes. Now, what is the importance of knowing this? Now, in Asia, the most common genotypes are the genotype B and genotype C. And if we find genotype C, it has more chances of developing cirrhosis and hepatocellular carcinoma. While the genotype B, this is less rapidly progressive liver disease, and there are less chances of cirrhosis in this case. However, the genotype C is very much hazardous. Whereas the genotype A and genotype D, which are present in United States and Europe, and the genotype A are usually show good response to the antiviral therapy. Now, in geographic distribution, we can see that India has about 2 to 7% prevalence, which falls into the intermediate group. Now, coming to the serological pattern, which is very important for your exam as well as for your NEET PG, so try to understand it. So, when a patient is infected with hepatitis B virus, first and foremost, the most important, the most infectious protein which comes into the circulation is hepatitis B surface antigen. Now, as the patient is infected with hepatitis B surface antigen, the patient will become symptomatic. Now, when the patient is having the peak of symptoms, the antigen which comes into the circulation is hepatitis B E antigen. So, in the infectious state, there are two antigens: hepatitis B surface antigen and hepatitis B E antigen. Now, after the appearance of the hepatitis B surface antigen, gradually after as the infection is going on, the body will try to curb this antigenic response. So it will raise an antibody against the hepatitis B surface antigen. So this is the anti-HBs antigen, which will come after few weeks of hepatitis B surface antigen. But it is not a hard and fast rule that it will come after a few weeks only. Sometimes the response can be instantaneous, means after the hepatitis B surface antigen falls, we will see that anti-HBs AG has come into the blood. Now, if there is a gap between the appearance of the antigen and appearance of the corresponding antibody, this gap is called the window period. Now, during this period, how can one detect that the person is having hepatitis B infection? For the detection of the hepatitis B infection in the window period, we have one antibody, that is IgM type of anti-HBC. Now you can see that there is no HBC antigen in the in the blood. Why? Because I told that HBC antigen is not secreted in the blood. However, we can find the corresponding antibody. So in window period, when HBsAg is also not detectable, when anti-HBs is also not detectable, the mode of detecting the hepatitis B infection is IgM anti-HBC. Now, as the patient will recover or go towards convalescence, the hepatitis, the anti-HB, means initially it will be IgM type, but as the disease will progress or the patient will recover, the IgG type will also come into action later. Now, and also the anti-HBe antigen. So during the stage of convalescence or during the chronic phase, we will have anti-HBe and anti-HBc IgG type. Along with that, we will have HBsAg positivity. Now, HBsAg, whenever it is positive, it shows the patient is infectious and also is infected by hepatitis B virus. And HBe antigen, that denotes that there is active viral replication. So this is all about acute hepatitis B infection. Now, what will happen in the chronic phase? Now, in the acute phase, we see that, okay, there is a peak in the hepatitis B surface antigen and it comes down after a few weeks and there is development of an antibody against it. But in case of chronic infection, the hepatitis C surface antigen will always be positive. Means it will always be detectable in the blood and there is no antibody to curb this hepatitis B surface antigen infection. And also there will be anti-HBC antibody, which will be of IgG type. And hepatitis B antigen, if it is positive in blood, that means there is active replication going on. So this will all happen in the chronic stage of hepatitis B infection. Now, there are certain molecular variants also in case of hepatitis B infection. That is of two types, that is the pre-core mutant or the escape mutant. Now, these are defined either by the lack of the nucleocapsid proteins, that is the C gene which secretes the HBC antigen or HBe antigen, or the envelope proteins, which is very rare. So, what is pre-core mutant? In the pre-core mutant, the patients are unable to secrete the HBe antigen. So if the patient is unable to secrete HBe antigen and it is not detectable in the blood, Now we will get a false assurance that the virus is not replicating. So the patient will land up in severe liver disease and rapidly progress to cirrhosis. Means we are not administering the treatment because we are not knowing whether the patient is secreting HBe antigen or not. So this happens in pre-code mutant virus. So they will obviously be identified later when they have already developed the chronic hepatitis or they have developed cirrhosis. Now, the other type of mutation that is present are the escape mutants. In the escape mutants, what happens is that I told you there is a common A determinant in all the genotypes or the subtypes. But what happens is a single amino acid substitution, which from glycine to arginine, which occurs at position 145, and this changes the A determinant. Now, because of this change in this determinant, this HBsAg will be altered, and the anti-HBs will fail to neutralize this HBsAg. Now, because anti-HBsAg recognizes only the subtypes which has got the A determinant, it will not be able to neutralize this HBs antigen. And so again, the patient will be develop a chronic stage. There will be chronic hepatitis or a carrier stage. Now, do you people understand a little bit of the serology? Unmute and answer, please. So, okay, if you have understood a little bit, then tell me what is the interpretation. We have done a serology profile with this antigens and antibody. HBsAg is positive, means the patient is showing hepatitis B surface antigen positivity. Anti-HBs is negative, means there are no neutralizing antibodies against this HBsAg. Anti-HBc is of IgM type, and HBe antigen, which shows high replication, that is also positive, and antibody has not developed against this HBe antigen. So what is the interpretation in this case? Unmute and answer.
Acute hepatitis.
Yeah, acute hepatitis, that's for sure. And because HBe antigen is positive, what do you infer from that? It shows
High
the
infectivity. High infection.
high replication. So this is acute hepatitis B, and this is highly infectious because HBe antigen is positive. Now coming to the second scenario, HBs antigen is positive, neutralizing antibody has not developed, anti-HBc is of IgG type. IgG type, I told, develops later in the course of the disease. And still HBe antigen is still positive, and anti-HBe has not developed against this. So what will be the interpretation?
Chronic hepatitis B with low infectivity.
No, why low infectivity? HBe
High
antigen shows
infectivity.
high infectivity.
High.
Yes, some high.
Chronic hepatitis B, but high infectivity. Next, coming to HBs antigen is positive. Anti-HBc is of IgG type, and we have anti-HBe now. Matlab hepatitis B antigen is negative, and we have antibody against this. So what are there can be two things in this. So what will be your interpretation?
Low infectivity.
Yes, low infectivity. Okay, what does this IgG show?
Chronic hepatitis.
Chronic.
Yeah, chronic hepatitis, low infectivity. That is one scenario. The another thing is that maybe the HBe antigen was not secreted because it is a pre-core mutant. So that is another scenario which can be present. Now the next one I am not asking because it's a bit complicated. In this, HBs antigen is positive, and along with this, anti-HBs is also positive. This is some sort of either some sort of seroconversion is going on, means simultaneously the stage where HBsAg is also positive and seroconversion is going on, means the anti-HBs is also arising simultaneously. So that is one scenario. Another scenario is that the anti-HBs which has developed, it has developed against some other subtype of HBs antigen. So this is called HBs antigen is of one subtype. but the anti-HBs is also of another subtype, or some sort of seroconversion is going on. Now, the next scenario, the anti-HB core antigen is positive, IgM type or IgG type. The HBe is positive or negative, and anti-HBe is also positive or negative. So what can be the inference? What happens in the window period? In the window period, I told that HBs antigen will also be negative, and anti-HBs is also taking time to develop. So anti-HBs is also negative. However, anti-HBc core antigen will be negative. So this can depict a window period, because how we know that the infection is going on? Because the HBe antigen is positive. So this can either be a window period, or it can still be a acute hepatitis B if it is hepatitis B antigen positive, and along with this anti-HBc is also positive. Now coming to the next scenario, in which the anti-HBc IgG type is present, HBe antigen is negative, anti-HBe is positive or negative. So what can you think here? HBe antigen is completely negative here. It's not positive negative, it's completely negative. However, IgG is positive and anti-HBe can be positive or negative. So it can be either a low level of hepatitis B carrier because IgG is positive, or some hepatitis B has happened in the remote past, but now he is not infective. Now coming to the next scenario, anti-HBs has developed. Now anti-HBs is a protective antibody against the HBs antigen. Anti-HBc is of IgG type, the HBe antigen is negative, and anti-HBe can be either positive or negative. Now, whenever this anti-HBs has developed, that suggests that the patient has infective or not infective or protected.
Protective, recovered.
Yeah, the patient has recovered. The patient has recovered from hepatitis B. And the next scenario, only anti-HBs is positive. So what can you think in this? Everything is negative only if the patient is having anti-HBs.
Vaccinated.
Yeah, it's vaccinated individual, or the patient might be having some hepatitis B in the remote past. Everything is cleared up and he has the protective hepatitis B surface and anti-HBs positive. Or it can be sometimes be false positive also because of some technical reasons. Now coming to the pathogenesis. In pathogenesis, this looks very complicated. I will not go in great details. Now, whenever there is hepatitis B infiltration into the hepatocytes, the immunological response will come into play, like any inflammation or any infection. So the T cells will come into action. It will release the cytotoxic T cells. Then this will adhere to the endothelial cells. It will migrate to the hepatocyte and it will cause apoptotic damage of the hepatocyte. And then also it releases interferon gamma, which releases a few more chemokines and all that factors, which causes recruitment of more mononuclear cells. Now, all this goes in acute hepatitis, which will be present in 3 to 6 months. And at that time, as this is a acute condition, this is a hepatitic condition, there will be rise in the serum ALT levels. Now, as the disease will be prolonged, the patient will enter into the chronic stage. Now, in the chronic stage, what happens? There will be the inflammatory cells will go down, and as we all know, all the chronic inflammation heals by fibrosis. So the stellate cells will come into action. They will be modified into myofibroblast, and there will be fibrosis or cirrhosis. Now, if still all the injury is going on, there can be transformation into hepatocellular carcinoma. So hepatitis B can give rise to hepatocellular carcinoma as well as cirrhosis. So hepatitis B is a type of virus which can give rise to chronic stage. Hepatitis A, on the other hand, doesn't have a chronic stage. Now, what can be the sequelae of the infections? Now, after acute infection, the patient 65%, that means a lot. The patient will be having subclinical disease. Subclinical means some rise of ALT, some weakness, some lethargy, and 100% of these patients will recover. 25% can show acute hepatitis when there can be a histological change in the hepatocytes. However, these patients also majority will recover. Only 1% will develop fulminant hepatitis, that is acute hepatic failure. Now, the only about 5 to 10% goes on to develop chronic hepatitis. In this also, some percentage can show recovery, and 20 to 30% can develop cirrhosis, and 2 to 3% can develop hepatocellular carcinoma. So this all can happen in case of hepatitis B. Now, next, coming to the hepatitis C virus. Hepatitis C is a relatively recent virus in the sense that it was discovered in around 1989. Now, this is also an RNA virus, and this is was also called as non-A, non-B hepatitis. Mode of transmission, like hepatitis B, this has also got a parenteral transmission. So it can be either through IV drug abuse or needle stick injury or multiple sexual partners, or through transfusion of blood products. Perinatal transmission can also occur. Now, I did not go to the. There are several viral proteins, envelope proteins. These are the various structural and non-structural proteins. Now, these structural proteins has various functions which help in the proliferation of virus and also helps in the disease pathogenesis. Now, this can cause proliferation of the virus, can cause apoptosis of the hepatocytes, and also the core protein can cause dysregulated lipid metabolism, because of which we can find steatosis in case of hepatitis C virus. And also this can give rise to chronic inflammation. So these are the functions of all the envelope proteins or structural and non-structural proteins which are found in the viral genome. Now, hepatitis C virus, mostly it goes to develop chronic hepatitis. About 80% of the cases develops chronic hepatitis. However, acute hepatitis is very rare in case of hepatitis C, and also there's a large chance of developing cirrhosis and hepatocellular carcinoma, even more than that of hepatitis B. Now, what is the importance of knowing of all these proteins? Now, the thing is that hepatitis C initially did not have a good treatment. It was not treatable only. It was a dreadful disease. Nowadays, all research and everything is going out against this various viral proteins, so that the hepatitis C virus can be curbed. So, but the treatment is very much expensive. So, like in the proteins against the virus binding sites, there are neutralizing antibodies. There are antiretrovirals against the translation and polypeptide processing procedure. Then there are inhibitors of RNA replication. So this all development is going on. Now, in this hepatitis C also, there are about 7 genotypes, and more than 50 subtypes has been seen within the genotypes. And these genotypes, they differ from one another. The difference is seen in the sequence of their genome. So the homology is they differ from one another by more than 30% in genotypes, and the subtypes also show difference of about 20%. Now, because of this divergence of so much diversity in hepatitis C virus isolates, both in genotypes and subtypes, and this intragenotypic difference, this is referred by a term called quasi-species. Because of so much variation, it is difficult for the body to raise any sort of humoral immunity against hepatitis C virus. And that's why hepatitis C virus is thought to be a very dreadful virus. Now, coming to the prevalence, India has got a low prevalence of about 1 to 1.9%. As a whole, hepatitis C is the least common of all the viruses. Now, what is the disease progression in case of hepatitis C? Now, acute hepatitis infection is usually asymptomatic, and it is very rare. About 85% of the individuals, they develop into chronic hepatitis. And this chronic hepatitis, when there is superimposed other debilitating factors like alcohol use, or the patient is of older age, is on immunosuppressive drugs because of HIV, or has some sort of immunosuppressive diseases like diabetes and all, there are more chances of developing cirrhosis. And also the risk of developing carcinoma is about 1 to 4% per year in case of hepatitis C. Now coming to the serology, as the most common manifestation of hepatitis C is that of chronic hepatitis. So what we see is that there will be prolonged release of this hepatitis C virus RNA into circulation, and this is detected by PCR. These are usually not detected by serology. Anti-HBC can be detected, but this anti-HBC, which is raised against this HCV RNA, this also does not give lifelong immunity in case of hepatitis C. Now, if in 20% of cases, if the patient is lucky enough, the patient can develop acute hepatitis C virus and the patient can recover. However, this scenario is very rare in case of hepatitis C. Now, coming to hepatitis D was discovered in 1977. Now, this hepatitis D virus is usually co-infects with hepatitis B. This is a type of satellite virus. So satellite virus of hepatitis B, so because it is a satellite virus of hepatitis B, the mode of transmission is also like hepatitis B, that is parenteral route. Now coming to the molecular biology, this is again an RNA virus. While hepatitis B virus was a DNA virus, this is a this is an RNA virus, belongs to the family genus Delta Viridae. How it is a satellite virus? Now for its replication and propagation, the surface envelope that is derived from the hepatitis B virus. That's why it is called a satellite virus of hepatitis B virus. Coming to the distribution is low, not that much in India. Now this also has got 3 genotypes. Now the genotype 2 is primarily found in Asia. And if the genotype is of type 3, it can develop severe acute hepatitis. Now the hepatitis D virus, there are 2 modes of infection, either co-infection, that is co-infection with hepatitis B, or there is superinfection. So what happens in case of co-infection? The patient will simultaneously contract hepatitis B and hepatitis D virus. And so this results in acute hepatitis B and hepatitis D virus. And this is usually self-limiting. It causes chronic infection in about less than 5% of patients. So in this, what will we see? There will be simultaneous presence of hepatitis B surface antigen, which is the infectious protein of hepatitis B. And along with this, we will find hepatitis D virus RNA also, and also IgM type of anti-hepatitis D virus. The other mode of infection is superinfection. In superinfection, what happens? The patient has developed chronic hepatitis B, and upon that, the patient is also infected with hepatitis D. But this is a superinfection is a very dreadful thing. It develops into a severe acute hepatitis, and also it can lead to chronic hepatitis D infection in about 80% of the cases. And there are more chances of developing hepatic encephalopathy when there is superinfection of hepatitis D with hepatitis B. More chances of hepatic encephalopathy and also more chances of liver cirrhosis. So the mortality also goes very high when there is superinfection. So what happens in this? I said the patient is having chronic hepatitis B. So hepatitis surface antigen will appear positive for a long time. Hepatitis D virus will also be positive. It will never come down to baseline. And obviously the patient will have anti-hepatitis D virus also. Now coming to the last virus, that is the hepatitis E virus. Now hepatitis E is like hepatitis A virus. It is an RNA virus. It is enterically transmitted. However, it is more common than hepatitis A virus. It causes about 30% of the cases of sporadic acute hepatitis, more common than hepatitis A virus. So you can say it is very much highly prevalent in the Asian countries. Now in this also there are about 5 genotypes, Now, genotype 1 and genotype 2 that causes more severe hepatitis, especially in case of pregnant women. So you should remember this point that the hepatitis E virus, when present in pregnant women, it can give rise to fulminant acute hepatitis. So the mode of progression, it can be either asymptomatic infection which can clear up, or it can cause acute liver failure, especially the genotype 1 and genotype 2. Chronic hepatitis hepatitis E usually doesn't develop. It's almost nil in case of hepatitis E. So when we look into the serology, like hepatitis A, the virus can be, because it is enterically transmitted, so it can be detected in stool. And like any virus, the IgM will be the first one to be detected when it, and then it comes to the baseline. And during the convalescence phase, the IgG type antibody will come and it will give lifelong immunity. Now, what can be the clinical scenarios when the patient has developed hepatitis? The patient can have either acute symptomatic infection, asymptomatic infection, and the patient will recover. In this case, the patient will show only minimally elevated serum transaminases, or the patient was tested because he had to undergo some surgical procedure, and by chance he was detected to have antiviral antibodies, but the patient was completely asymptomatic. Now, hepatitis A and hepatitis B infection can have subclinical events, and the presence, then their presence can only be detected by the presence of anti-hepatitis A virus and hepatitis B virus antibodies. Or the patient can be symptomatic. The patient will be show acute symptoms, but the patient will recover. So in this, there are 4 phases. There will be incubation period, and then there will be a symptomatic pre-icteric phase, which will show high hepatic enzyme levels. Then there will be a symptomatic icteric phase when the patient will show jaundice and all, followed by recovery. Then the patient can develop acute liver failure. If the patient is not able to recover, that happens in only 10% of cases. And the most common agents which are involved in causing acute liver failure are hepatitis A and hepatitis E. But hepatitis B is more common in case of Asia and in the Mediterranean regions. Now, chronic then comes after acute phase, that is acute asymptomatic, acute symptomatic, and then acute liver failure, or the patient can go into the chronic stage. In the chronic stage, the patient can be symptomatic, that is, the patient can show either biochemical evidence like prolonged enzyme levels, or the serologic evidence like there'll be continuous hepatitis B surface antigen positivity. Then as the patient is developing, going into chronic stage, the synthetic functions will be affected. So there will be loss of coagulation factors, which will be depicted in the form of increased prothrombin type. There can be hyperbilirubinemia. And also one thing that is present in chronic hepatitis is that patient can develop immune complex disease in case of hepatitis, like vasculitis, like the polyarthritis nodosa, which is a type of medium vessel vasculitis, which is usually seen in association with chronic hepatitis B. So whenever we see a patient of polyarthritis nodosa, we do take a history of hepatitis B. Or the patient can show glomerulonephritis or cryoglobulinemia. Now, what is carrier state? Now, carrier is an individual who harbors and can transmit the organism. He is having the organism and he can transmit also, however, he is asymptomatic. So this is the carrier stage. Or the individuals who harbor the virus, he has no liver disease, or he is having an asymptomatic non-progressive liver damage. Now, hepatitis B virus can show an healthy carrier stage. Now, in healthy carrier stage, what will be the serological profile? HBs antigen will be positive, anti-HBe is positive, and hepatitis B is antigen is negative. Means the patient is not showing high replication. However, the HBs antigen shows that it is very much infected. The aminotransferases level will be normal. The hepatitis B virus DNA, which is detected by PCR, will be either low or undetectable. And on the liver biopsy also, we won't see any significant inflammation. Now to summarize, uh, the points which are important for you to remember is, now only hepatitis B virus is DNA, rest all viruses are RNA type. Only hepatitis A and hepatitis E viruses are transmitted through has got transmitted through food and all, while hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and hepatitis D, that has got parenteral transmission. Now, in the clinical severity, uh, only the hepatitis B and hepatitis D can be occasionally severe, and progression to chronicity, that is most common in case of hepatitis C virus. Now coming to the pathogenesis and clinical findings. Now what happens, first of all, after infection, the hepatocytes will be invaded and damaged. So when the inflammation, when there will be inflammation of the hepatocytes, the patient will manifest in the form of right upper quadrant pain or tenderness. Now if the infection is more prolonged, the patient will develop fever, nausea and vomiting. Now as there is inflammation, ultimately this will lead to lysis of the hepatocytes. Now when there will be lysis of the hepatocytes, the hepatocellular enzymes will be released into the blood, which will be seen in the form of increased serum ALT and serum AST. This is the hepatic profile. Now if the infection continues further, if the patient has acute infection with acute viruses like hepatitis A and hepatitis E, it will resolve with time. However, if the patient is infected with viruses which can develop chronicity like hepatitis B and hepatitis C, gradually the synthetic functions and all will be affected. So the hepatic metabolic activity will go down. The plasma proteins will decrease, which will manifest in the form of decreased albumin and increased prothrombin time or increased INR because of low synthesis of the coagulation factors. And also the canalicular proteins will also be affected. So there will be decrease in bilirubin clearance, which will lead to development of jaundice. Now, after this stage, if the patient is still progressing to cirrhosis and hepatic failure, there will be manifestations of hepatic encephalopathy or portal hypertension in the form of esophageal varices, edema, ascites, or there will be hormonal imbalance in the form of spider nevi or testicular atrophy, gynecomastia, or other manifestations. Now coming to the microscopy of acute hepatitis and chronic hepatitis. Now in acute hepatitis, what happens? The portal tract will show a little bit inflammation. The hepatocytes will show a little bit of ballooning degeneration, and cholestasis can also be seen. Now as the patient goes into chronic stage, the portal inflammation will increase. There will be dense mononuclear inflammation, that is inflammation by lymphocytes and plasma cells. And also the patient develops cirrhosis, so there will be bridging fibrosis and bridging necrosis. And in case of hepatitis, chronic hepatitis B, the hepatocytes will show ground glass change, and the hepatitis C, which usually shows the chronic stage, there will be fatty change in the hepatocytes. Now coming to the microscopy, now this is showing the hepatitis, acute hepatitis. You can see that the cytoplasm is very much swollen up. These are called the ballooned hepatocyte, and also you can see a lot of lobular inflammation. This is a portal tract showing the inflammation by the lymphocytes and plasma cells. This is a bile duct. And also there can be bridging necrosis. By bridging necrosis, what do I mean? There was supposed to be a hepatic plate here. This plate is not there. This plate is destroyed by inflammation. And by bridging, I mean either there's a portal to central vein bridging or portal to portal bridging. Now, other things which can be present are, this is the apoptotic body, which can be present in various forms of hepatitis, but it was first described in yellow fever, and it is also present in acute viral hepatitis. This is an apoptotic hepatocyte, and this is named as the Councilman body. Or it can show coagulative necrosis also. Also, there can be confluent perivenular necrosis. This is a central vein, and we can see necrosis around the central vein. This can be found apart from viral hepatitis. This can also be found in other diseases like paracetamol poisoning or autoimmune hepatitis. None of the microscopic features are specific in case of hepatitis. This can be found in various other diseases also. It is only the clinico-pathological correlation which yields a diagnosis. Bridging hepatocnecrosis, I have already described. The hepatic plate is missing and the reticulin helps to identify this bridging hepatocnecrosis. This is a normal hepatic plate. We can see that there is no hepatic plate. This has collapsed. So this is called the bridging hepatic necrosis. Or the liver can show entire necrosis, which is called as the submassive necrosis, and there can be some regenerative nodules. Now, what are the microscopic manifestations in chronic hepatitis? Now, this chronic hepatitis B, this shows a ground glass type of change. By ground glass, what do I mean is, I described that the hepatocyte usually shows granular eosinophilic cytoplasm, but here the cytoplasm appears homogeneous pinkish in color, and sometimes you can see an artifactual clefting around this inclusion. Now, this can be detected by immunohistochemistry by hepatitis B surface antigen, and also this can be detected by the Orsin stain. Now, this is further depicted here. You can see these are the normal hepatocytes. These hepatocytes are different from the normal hepatocytes. These are uniform homogeneous and there is a clefting around this. These are ground glass, but this is again not specific for hepatitis B. It can be also present in various diseases like typhoid glycogenosis, which is a type of storage disease. It can be present in Laforas disease, some medication. Now, this ground glass hepatocyte that can be detected by certain stains. The stains can be Orsin or Victoria blue, or the immunohistochemical stain, that is hepatitis B surface antigen. Now, that was about the surface antigen. Now, where can we detect hepatitis B core antigen? Hepatitis B core antigen is not secreted, so it is present within the nucleus only. You can see that the nucleus is also somewhat different. This is a normal nucleus. This is appearing like some sort of inclusion is there. These are called as the sanded nuclei. And this can be detected by immunohistochemistry for HB core antigen. So these are chronic hepatitis B. Next, coming to chronic hepatitis C. Chronic hepatitis C usually shows large lymphoid follicles in the portal tract, and some steatosis can also be present in the hepatocytes. Now, coming to the next topic, that is autoimmune hepatitis. Now, autoimmune hepatitis, these are can be of three types, but type 1 and type 2 is usually more common. And the type 1 is usually more associated with young women who are suffering from systemic lupus erythematosus. And we can find circulating anti-neutrophil antibodies in the blood. Now, one thing you should remember is the type 2 autoimmune hepatitis, the antibodies which are found are the anti-LKM1 and anti-liver cytosol 1. Whereas in type 1, it is the P-ANCA type of antibody. Now, what happens in case of autoimmune hepatitis? Autoimmunity means loss of self-tolerance. Means the hepatocytes, the enzymes or certain constituents of hepatocytes, they themselves become antigenic. So when they are now, why they become antigenic? Because of some genetic predisposition or because of molecular mimicry. Molecular mimicry means the patient had infection with some other virus, had antigenic response against the virus. Now that antibody is also reacting against the hepatocytes. Now, as you must have studied in immunology, when there is any foreign body invasion, the antigen will bind to the antigen presenting cell. It will be presented to the helper T cell. The helper T cell will raise a cytotoxic response, which will damage the hepatocyte, or the helper T cell will help in the releasing the immunoglobulins from the plasma cell. Now, what are the microscopic manifestations of interface of autoimmune hepatitis? Now, this is a normal portal tract. We can see there is very sparse inflammation, and the portal tract can be delineated from the adjoining hepatic parenchyma by a virtual plate-like thing. This is called the limiting plate. Now, by interface hepatitis, what we mean is there'll be a lot of inflammation, and the inflammation will spill into the adjoining liver parenchyma. This is called as interface hepatitis. Like we can see in this image, the portal tract is showing a lot of inflammation, and there is spillage of this inflammation into the adjoining hepatic parenchyma. And the inflammation is usually of mononuclear type, that is, there is a lot of plasma cell and lot of lymphocytes. The other thing which are present in case of autoimmune hepatitis is thing called emperipolysis, in which the hepatocyte is seen to engulf a lymphocyte, that is called as emperipolysis. The other thing which can be present is, because there's a lot of damage and in the hepatocyte, there will be regeneration of hepatocyte. So apart from showing ballooning degeneration, the regeneration is in the form of rosettes. Means it is arranged in some circular fashion or acinar formation. These are called as hepatocellular rosettes. And apart from that, because it is an inflammatory process, we can see lobular inflammation also. Now, there's a scoring system for diagnosis of autoimmune hepatitis, because histological features are non-specific. You can find these features in viral hepatitis also. So we have to screen for autoimmune antibodies. We have to see the immunoglobulin level. We have to see the histology, whether it is compatible or not. And we have to rule out that there is no viral disease. So there's a scoring system. If the score is more than or equal to 7, then only we can say that this is a case of autoimmune hepatitis. And if it is around 6, then it is called as a probable autoimmune hepatitis. If the score is less than that, then autoimmune hepatitis is excluded and we have to rule out some other cause of hepatitis.